this video, we're going to be making our aim offset somewhat functional. So we have to modify our weapon aiming to allow us to build a move while still having the aim offset, like the ability to look up and down, as well as we're going to be implementing from C++ our is aiming, because if you recall, we have a replicated boolean called b is aiming, so we need to link that up for our animation blueprint so we can set is aiming to true and false. Then we're going to be making we're going to make it so we can look up and down. Now, we're only going to be doing that strictly in Blueprint for now, but we're going to be using that as kind of a base in order to set our, what do I call it? Pretty much bake a little foundation so we can see, okay, here's how we did it in Blueprint. We're doing that in the event graph, by the way. So how can we do that in C++? That's essentially the reason we're doing this. So that way we can also keep it separated and do shorter little videos from now on, hopefully. So we can go ahead and get started. So if you recall from our crouching idle walk, we used layered blend per bone. And this allowed us to be able to crouch at the lower body, but keep our upper body the same, or doing whatever animation we want. Now, this is what we want to do for our weapon, our aim space. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this from our crouch idle walk state and move on to our weapon aiming state and paste it. Now go ahead and link up the layered blend per pose. Now we are going to get rid of the crouch and set the idle run to the base pose. Right now. Sorry, we're going to use the blend space animation for the base pose and link the speed up. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab the aim offset, put it into blend pose 0, and then grab our idle rifle iron sight pose and link it to our base pose. Compile and save. And now we can test it by looking at has weapon, checking that to true, and is aiming, setting that to true. So now you can see he's aiming while standing. Set the yaw to, I guess, 70. All right, that is working. Now let's change our speed to 250. And you can see he is moving while aiming as intended. So we'll set our speed back to 0 and has weapon to false. Set that back to 0. So now also let's set our is aiming back to false. Now we can go ahead and link that up, our is aiming, via C++. So we need to make a function. Let me check if I don't already have one. Okay, we don't already have one, so let's make a blueprint pure function that returns is aiming. So what we're going to do is do this right under our server function. We're going to do ufunction blueprint pure. We're going to call it bool is player aiming. Now all this is going to do is return b is aiming, just like so. And now we can compile. Also, when I bring up like this, when it's green line, you can press Alt Enter and create the definition for the function you just declared. As you can see, it did it right here. I'm still waiting on it to compile. All right, there we go. Now we go to our event graph, and I want to make a sequence so that way we can separate all of this. So this stuff's going to be used first, and then afterward it's going to be used second. So I'm going to right click, add in the sequence, and link that up, and that should be working like normal. Now one thing we can do is we can actually move our has weapon stuff down and make that separate. So what I'm going to actually do is create an event. So call it begin event blueprint begin play. This is going to fire when the blueprint spawns. And we're going to create a reference to our survival character. So that way it's not having to do it each time and to make it easier to access from other functions. So I'm going to create a new variable, call it character ref. Type's going to be survival character. Going to compile and save. And what we're going to do is we're going to do try get pawn owner. And the return value we're going to cast to survival character. From there, we're going to set the character ref. And we're good to go there. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to set this up for the second sequence. So I'm going to delete that. Let's see, yeah, turn off that is valid. Link that up. And on sequence 2, that's where we're going to do everything. So I want to remake the has weapon. So I want to get this, get character, has weapon. And set has weapon to equal that. And from here, we're going to do our is aiming. So is player aiming? Well, we can set is aiming. All right, so that is now setting both of our variables there, so we should be good to go. Now we need to create a function to pretty much complement our yaw and pitch. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create two new variables. Why does it keep doing that? Make one called yaw. Type's going to be a float. The other one's going to be called pitch. Again, type's going to be a float. We're going to plug in yaw. And we're going to plug in pitch. All right, so back to our event graph. Here's where we're going to do all that. So we're going to take our control rotation and we're going to subtract that from our actuals, like our actor rotation. I mean, not subtract, sorry. And then we're going to use that essentially. We're going to get the delta from those two rotators and get the yaw and pitch from them. And that's where we're going to set our yaw and pitch to. So to do that, let's just create a new function, make it a little bit cleaner. Call it set AimOffset. We're going to get our character reference. We're going to do get control rotation. Same thing here. We're going to do get actor rotation. Going to get those two. Dragging off of our control rotation, we're going to get the delta. So we're going to plug our control rotation into A and our actor rotation into B. We're going to get the delta from that rotator. Then we're going to break that and set our pitch and yaw. So I'm going to do the pitch first since it's on top. Pitch. And yaw. Right, so now let's call that function just like so. And just test it. Right, as you can see, we are now aiming up and down only when we are aiming. So whenever I press I'm letting go of a mouse bumper right now. I want to press it. Letting go, going to press it. As you can see, he aims up and down. All right, what are you complaining about? So I want to do an isValid node. So if it's valid, it will run that. Hopefully that fixes those issues. Still works. Yep, that fixed it. So I think that was due to the server failing for this. And so let's move that over. All right. So I want to do a new function, call it set weapon variables. And we're going to make it do this. And then we're going to replace this stuff out and just simply call it. So that way it's nice and clean. Just like so. So now we should have our pretty much everything we need to modify in here. So let's do one more quick test, then I'll reiterate what we've done. So we're aiming properly. I want to make sure that's actually replicated real quick. Should be. Pick up weapon, completely missed it. All right, as you can see, when we aim, but we cannot check when we look up and down. All right, so that's good. The only thing we need to replicate, as well as we're going to move to C++, is our aim offset. So let's reiterate what we've done real quick. So for starters, just to save a little bit, casting isn't that expensive, but we might as well go this route. So what we're doing is we are on begin play of the blueprint. We're essentially setting a character reference to our survival character just for future use. Then we change this blueprint up, well, our animation blueprint set up our loop to run in a sequence. So the first part is going to run through and it's going to set all of these variables here, which I'm going to actually move into a new function real quick. So set movement variables. So I'm going to do all this. I'm going to copy. And I'm going to do the same thing with our try get pawn owner. And link that up. Then if it's valid, we're going to run through this and simply set our speed and is crouching, is in air, and that kind of stuff. So compile, save that. All right, we need to link all this kind of stuff up. Right, compile, save. Now let's call it. So call set movement variables. You can delete that comment and move this fancy mumbo jumbo up here. So compile, save, make sure we work properly. Crouching. Golly, that's an ugly animation. Looking up, looking down. Now we just need a state for crouching animation. So I want to do that at the end real quick, but I'm going to reiterate what we've done so you can follow along. So we obviously set up some functions to make everything cleaner. We moved our set weapon variables such as has weapon and is aiming into one function for an easy call. Then we add our setAim function. Now what this is doing is taking our control rotation and our active rotation, getting the delta between the two. From there we break our rotator up and we're getting our yaw and our pitch from that. We really don't need the yaw, we only need the pitch, but in case we do something in the future, such as making it so we can kind of pivot left and right past to a certain extent before we start actually rotating, we're just going to leave it. I don't know if we're going to do that or not. Then for our state machine, when we go to is aiming, whoops, what we've done is we take our pretty much our blend space for moving. So this is like our walking back and forth and stuff like that. That's going to be our lower half, pretty much from our spine, I can't remember which bone, down. Then from our other blends, like our other bone, like kind of an up, we're taking our blend space with our just our base iron sight pose as our base pose. So this will allow us the bottom half to move, pivot, and stuff like that, and our top half to be able to use our blend space. That's how we're going to do our crouching. So I add a new state machine, or a new state, call this one weapon aiming crouched. Actually, I'm going to call this crouching weapon aiming. And as you can see here, for this condition, we have, you're not going to show me the conditions. All right, we have has weapon and is crouching. So what we're going to do is for our crouching weapon aiming, we're going to have 3. So 1, has weapon. 2, is crouching. That's actually going to be our first comparison. Make it a little faster. And 3 is aiming. So we're going to do an and boolean, like that, add pin, like that, pass it. So if we have a weapon, if we are crouching, and if we're aiming, I need to back that up because I don't have a link to that, and we are aiming. Now if we're crouching, all right, I forgot to make the pose. So let me copy this, this, put it in there. We're going to replace our blend space for the weapon aim animation to our crouch blend space and link up the speed. So if I am crouching now, we are at the crouching aim, which is going to be a really bad animation. I need to swap that out. So now we need to return back. So it's going to be all this with a not boolean to be able to return back. So is crouching and not crouching. Oops, crouching, not crouching. So it's going back and forth like we need. Then we need a way to link this up and return. So it's going to be essentially the same conditions. And same thing for the return. With the exception of is aiming. Or, is not aiming. Okay, so if we are crouching, we have a weapon and we are not aiming, what we do is return back to the crouching weapon. And if we are crouching, we have a weapon and we are aiming, we go to our crouching and aiming. So I'm going to uncheck our aiming. It is crouching, should be here. Now we check the is aiming. We go to it, then we go back. So we know our state machine's working. So let's check and make sure we didn't screw it up too bad. So we look up, it's working, down, working. We crouch, look up, it's working, down, it's working. So our up and down's working. We just need to work on the actual lower body part of the animation, but that'll be done in a future video. And I will see you then.